What's going on, fam? We it is a feedback, Natalie, in your background. It's like, what up, fam? It is Boss Up Talk episode 106. We've been kind of on a break for a few weeks, just regrouping, holiday time, getting things together. But guys, like and share this feed on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram wherever you're watching. Like and share this feed. We are live today. Got a lot of great stuff to talk about, especially ending the year strong. It is December. So, listen, if you made it to December, that means you've made it to the end of the year. Thankfully, it's something to have gratitude about and just be thankful. So, as you guys know, we always start every podcast week or every live week off with something that happened great. So, we have like 3 weeks of stuff to kind of be to talk about. So, Natalie, what's some great things that happen or some positive things or right direction, redirection for the last like what's been going on with you?
Hey, is there feedback? Am I good?
No, you good. You good.
Okay, cool. So I have been branching out onto TikTok and getting much love over there in that community. I'm super excited about it. I had tried to branch out to TikTok before and it was just crickets and it was dead. And so I just took a break from it and then I just came back authentically. I think it was more of me being integrated in my being and my message and who I was and really getting comfortable with just being myself and not showing up and trying to be a particular way, trying to follow a format. But just trying to be the format myself. And so being able to do that has really helped me grow on the platform. And I think within a matter of just weeks, having, more than 100 people following me on the platform, I didn't know that you could go live. If you don't have 1,000 followers. So me at my little bit of 380 something followers was able to go live. And so I have been going live on TikTok as well as Instagram, which gets into my second win for 25 days of vision and victory. I have an advent calendar for business owners, and I really just want to help them show up with more momentum in their business. And I enjoy reading my advent calendar every year in December. And so I said, how about I just create one for business owners so that they can show up and show out and create that momentum before January 1st begins. And so I've been doing that. This is day 11, of course, starting with the day one in December. And that's been going really good, which is leading into my masterclass that I'm dropping on December 30th of this year, and it's going to be the rest into the results. What I have been doing, which is another win, is really analyzing how I'm able to get results in certain areas of my life and see these things come to pass. And I thought it was literally just speaking it, but when I went back, I took some time and spent some time with God, and I went back and looked over my history, and there's a framework there. There's a framework that I keep using and I kept repeating that was getting me results. And then as I actually sat with it, ChatGPT helped me, sat with this thing, I was actually able to see and extract the framework. And that's what I'm going to be teaching in the masterclass, teaching people how to start the end, how to get to the end from the beginning, right? Or get to start the end in the beginning. Start with the results, start with the outcome, start with the final thing. It is finished, and then move from that particular place to getting those results. And so I'm super excited about that. This is a win for me.
That's super dope. That's super dope. I like what you said about really just showing up as yourself on platforms. 'Cause I think what happens is sometimes we look for a blueprint when it comes to being ourselves. When it's just like just be you. You don't have to be anybody else. Just show up as you. And the more you show up as yourself authentically, you can really get more breakthrough and understanding. And people will like you for you. I think so oftentimes we look at ways to try to perfect this when it's like if you just show up as you, um, the right people will be attracted to you. The right situations will happen for you. I think for me, just really like growing. We had last week was our first time booking two full gigs on the same day, same time, with our packages. Like our, like our, it's some thousands of dollars a package, and it was great because everyone enjoyed it and it was just great reviews. I've still been working on my media. That's like been my goal to really just get better at like editing and things of that nature. and just showing up as my best self. But also too, I've been writing some stuff, but books over the years. But like I've about publishing it, it's been like kind of oh, I'll start it, I'll stop it. But I recently had a dream the other day, and just the way what I had a dream about was something that I think it definitely is something for entrepreneurs. So I'm gonna get that out next year, because it's really about how do we move to be a crashless entrepreneur. The dream was about cars, and I was actually crashing into stuff. And the significance of that is sometimes is that, and I couldn't control the speed or the will. So what happens is sometimes we're in life, we are in the driver's seat, but we don't act like we're the driver. We allow things to happen. We go through life, and we don't really take control over the wheel. And I think that's the biggest thing that I think entrepreneurs really have to do is take the wheel. But with taking the wheel, knowing the responsibility that comes with that. With me, I'm responsible for my mentees. I have business partners. Like, it's just like different things that I'm responsible for and with how I show up. So I'm just really mindful of how I show up. So I want to make sure that in 2025, the path that I'm on, it is big on clarity and purpose, which we talk about all the time. And getting into today's topic is, so we're gonna do a podcast topic for the next 2 weeks, and we're gonna take a little break because it's the holiday time again. And for the next 2 weeks, we're talking about the makings of a champion, right? So when I think of champions, I think of like Gladiator, and I think of Michael Jordan. I think of all these different people. I think of Mike Tyson. I think of all these people who were champions, and I think about the struggle they had to get there. But it didn't matter about the struggle. What the matter was about them getting to the championship and winning. Um, First, we'll start off with vision, right? The first thing you need to be a champion is to have vision, right? So for me, like I was cleaning my glasses today, and I actually made a mistake and unscrewed it because I was like gripping it too hard. So I had to fix my glasses because guess what? I don't have 20/20 vision. So I know that I need my glasses to have clear vision. So I am a screwdriver, I had a knife, I had to turn it around, twist it up because I know I needed to see. Because in order for me to have clear vision, I have to make sure whatever blinders I have on are clear. So I know that natural vision ain't it for me, but I do have my glasses. So the first thing a champion need for the vision is the champion's blueprint, right? So the Bible talks about in Proverbs 29 verse 18, where there's no vision, the people perish. All right, so clarity of purpose really sets the foundation of success. Where, like for an athlete, what is their goal in being an athlete? As an entrepreneur, what's your goal in being a business owner? Like for me, like yeah, I love to cook, and that's my passion. But what is my purpose attached to that? Like, why do I do what I do? People on social media say like you're really passionate about what you do, but then when I get to tell you about like how I really started my business, you get to get more clear. Oh, that's why you're like that about your business. So whenever you think about really having clarity of purpose and setting the foundation, you have to know that it is really important to have clear vision to build. You cannot build without clear vision. Like somebody cannot start building a house with getting their plans approved by the city, by having an architect. Like a lot of us are just jumping into businesses and ideas and stuff, and we're not even trying to have clarity. So as you're going forth into what you do now or into this new year, what are some things that you want to really be clear about? There are people who are in relationships who ain't clear. Y'all have no clarity. So with that being said, what are some things that you want to reach with clarity to become a champion in your field?
I love that. And I love that we're starting with vision because you got to see the end from the beginning in order to know where you're going. Without a direction, without an aim, without a goal, you just aimless. You wandering aimlessly in an area that you really, when you're first coming into business, you know little to nothing about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that we're talking about vision and having clarity of your vision. And I think most people, when they hear that, they're like, let me get all the pieces together. But what they really need to start thinking about is what do you want? What do you want to see in your business? What do you want to see with who you are showing up as? What is it that you really want? And taking the time to wrestle with that wanting, your business to become, wrestling with that wanting to see something at the end, like the end result of something. But what is it that you want, and what is it that you desire? And really sitting with yourself consistently, asking yourself questions, because clarity comes when you ask questions. Most of the time, when I have my first session with people, and it's usually that clarity call or that breakthrough call, it's like, what do you see? I asked them that, what do you see? And some people are like, well, nobody's ever really asked me that. So why are you in business if you don't see something completely different, right? Why are you in business? Because business, the fundamental aspect of what business is I have a system where I solve problems. There is a problem that exists or will exist in the future, and I have a system in which people are getting solutions to the problem that they have. So I have to be able to see the problem already being solved. I may not have the exact plan on how to get there, I may not have all the steps to get there, but I have to be able to see the problem and be able to see the solution to the problem. And that's where the vision begins. What do you want to see? And most people are not willing to sit with themselves, to ask themselves what do they want, to ask themselves what they want to see. But that really takes you to another level, even if you're starting from scratch, is deciding, I want to see something different, and I'm willing to sit with myself and see that thing in my mind before I actually try to build that thing out in real life. So, champion.
That's so good. I love that. It's just really interesting because I think about, um, I think we've been asked this question since we were in kindergarten. What do you want to be when you grow up? And people, and what I realize is the older, especially as being a teacher, the older grades, it gets quieter and quieter, because what happens is we give out the answers that are good, like, oh, a doctor, lawyer, basketball player, like all that stuff is out. But as you get older, and as I would do like different seminars with different students, the closer they got to high school, into the real world, the quieter the answers got. I think because, like, especially the high school age is very like a confusing stage, because you're really just like experience life, find out things. But that's the same thing now, where if you ask somebody now, I think too, like in my 20s I want to be X, in my 30s I want to be X. What are you gonna be when you grow up? Because I think that sometimes we feel like growth stops when we become an adult, right? When growth actually accelerates, because you got to think the time that we have goes faster and faster and faster. So when you start to think about, like, what do you want to be, and how do you want to get there, clarity is so important. Because what I realize is, like, I'm a different situation, because I've always know I wanted to be a chef. Like, there's no point about it. Like, I know I wanted to do other stuff, but I knew culinary was my thing, and as I started my business when I was 10, so it was very easy for me. Now the journey of that has been always a challenge, because when you do know what you want and you're around people who don't, sometimes that can conflict the energies you guys have, especially when you're at a job with people who are really doing something they don't love to do, and you come and know what you want to do. It has it's brought friction in my 10 years of teaching, because I have a certain confidence. Like, I think when you have clarity, you develop confidence. Like, I think about Muhammad Ali and the confidence that he had, that people didn't like or people loved, because he knew what he was called to do. He knew he was good at what he did. He trained to be the best version of himself. And I think what happens is, because we don't know what we want to do, sometimes we start to operate in a lack of confidence. Because when you have clarity, clarity leads to confidence. Confidence leads to clarity, right? So for me, like, I've always been passionate about what I wanted to do. Now, I know there's different levels that I want to still reach, as a chef, as a food service professional, as a coach. But I'm looking at, like, okay, so, like, because I know the next thing I want to do is very, very big, which is open up a school. So honestly, I've been in the school, but I've never actually ran a school. So, oh, that's not true, but I've never actually ran one on my own, because I think the culinary chefs, they run the school low key. But when I start thinking about, like, how I really want to operate into the near future, I have to realize I have to study what I want to become. And if you have never met anybody who do what you do, you have to still ask God to give you clarity and say, God, what are the steps I need to take to really become this type of champion? When you start to really see things, you really start to really realize that you got to really take a step back, right? The first thing to know about your clarity, I want to go back to this, is you have to pray and ask God to reveal your purpose. If you don't know your purpose, ask God, you know what? listen, I want you to reveal my purpose. Second thing is write down your vision and your long-term goals. What is your vision? Like a lot of we don't take time to write things down. My mom has always been big on us journaling. Like she ain't play that. We got to journal all the time because she wanted you to write and process your thoughts down. So you write down your vision and your long-term goals. Next thing is create a step-by-step plan to achieve them. When you are really passionate, say I want to do something, you have to take time to be really delicate to create a step-by-step plan by achieving them. Sometimes winging it is cool because I'm a winger. Like I will wing it, but there's some things I can't wing because when you go inside of a bank and you want a certain amount of money, they want to see a business plan. You can talk as good as you want to, but they go by the numbers, you know? So you want to really do those three things. If you don't know your purpose, is one, ask for God to reveal it. Two, write down your vision, long-term goals, and three, your long-term goals, and three, step-by-step plans to achieve them. Now, what happens is what that creates is the word called discipline, right? Discipline gives is a champion's edge, right? um, the Bible says in First Corinthians 9, verse 25, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training, right? How strict are you on yourself when it comes to training every day? Like for me, this is hard yesterday because I'm really just like really was watching what I eat. And yesterday I wanted to eat something that I made for a client. And usually I make myself something and I literally had a scoop of it. Like because I know I wanted a big plate, but I said, no, no, no. You can have the flavor, but you can only have a scoop of this, a few pieces of that, and that's it. So I still got to enjoy the flavor, but I had to really become disciplined because sometimes it's so easy for us to jump into something and to want the abundance of it. But at the end of the day, sometimes we're not ready for that. Sometimes we got to have the smaller portion to get where we need to go. But it's about being disciplined. The more disciplined you are, the more you're able to really go through certain things. Like right now, I'm a traveler. I've not traveled since July. That is like one of the hardest things for me not to do is hop on a plane and go somewhere. But I'm like, Josh, you open up an event space with your friends. There's certain things you're trying to reach. Your money is very different now because you don't have that teaching salary anymore. It's just business. So are you going to save and put up? Because my other goal is increasing my credit score. So my credit score has been up like the last 2 months over 120 points. But that's because I was able to really like, okay, Jay, no, you can't travel. Like everything needs to be paid on time. Put something on it because I'm disciplined because I know in 2025, the places that God wants me to go, I have to practice discipline because when you have discipline, it is your edge to victory. It is your edge to victory. And you got to realize that in order to move to the next level, you have to operate in the spirit of organization, vision, and discipline.
Nice. I love it, love it, love it. Listen, I absolutely love everything you said, especially that discipline piece. But I want to go back
Mm-hmm.
to what you said about, when you're in school, they ask you, what do you want to be? And they do have a list of things that you can imagine as being a doctor, a lawyer, a
Yeah.
teacher, but they even have entrepreneur, but they don't have champion.
Yeah.
They don't have champion on the list of things. So we never get to really dive into not just what do we want to do, because when they ask you what do you want to be, they're not asking you what do you want to be, they're asking you what do you want to do, what is your profession, right? And we get to dream about the profession, but we don't get to dream about who we want to be. And I think that school education, the formal system, it tries its best, but it is limited in certain ways because they focus more on the output of a
Mm-hmm.
person instead of focusing on who the person is becoming. And
That's
if we
good.
were asked better questions, we would have more clarity in developing our character, because honestly, I didn't realize that I was going to be a teacher and an entrepreneur. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize I was going to be a teacher, a mother, a ministry leader, a wife, and an entrepreneur. And all five of those things have different focuses, even though they operate simultaneously in my life. So, what I need in order to be a champion in my business, what I need in order to be a champion as a wife, what I need, the specific details are very different, but the overall foundation, which you said is discipline, is required in each of those positions that I hold in my life. So a
Mm-hmm.
better question for me to have gained more clarity as a young girl growing up is, who do you want to be? Do I want to be someone that shows up on time? Do I want to be efficient? Do I want to be resilient? Having those adjectives to describe who I'm being as opposed to just focusing on the noun, focusing on the what, focusing on the output, which really and truly focus us on the money. And money makes a terrible master, but it
Mm-hmm.
makes a phenomenal servant. And if I wasn't so focused on, dang, I don't want to be an entrepreneur because I might struggle for a couple of years because I might
Yeah.
not get the money that I need in order to cover my bills. Let me just go straight into teaching, not realizing that I could do both. And I thank God for the way that He set it up because I needed the foundation of teaching, right? But the money wasn't enough. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it like this: the money was just enough.
Yeah.
And even if you are a teacher and you're making $110,000, that's still just enough. Because if God called you to be an entrepreneur, you can make 110,000 times 10. You have the possibility to make 110,000 times 100 because of the way that business is set up. There's no cap. With
Mm-hmm.
any state that you go to, with any place that you work with when it comes to being a teacher, they're going to have a cap on your salary. There is
Yeah.
no teacher that can work for 35 years and get unlimited pay. There's a cap on it. But you
Yeah.
can come into a business and 5 years become a millionaire. You could come into a business and 10 years become a millionaire. You can't do that as a teacher. Listen,
Yeah.
you can't do that as a CEO of some multi-million-dollar companies. You can't do that. So in order for us to now get to a place where as teenagers we can say, you know what do I want to be? I think I want to be a teacher and a mom and an entrepreneur.
Yeah. It's good.
And right, we have to first get the foundation of who do you want to become. Do you want to be resilient? Do you want to be a champion? Because a champion is disciplined. Do you want to be disciplined? We didn't have any of those options. That came after the fact. Oh, as a doctor, I think I know I have to go to school for this amount of time, or I know I
Mm-hmm.
have to be put in this amount of hours. Oh, as you know, a teacher, I got to do this particular thing. And then we look for supplements. But if they would start from the foundation, the right foundation in the beginning,
That's
then
good.
we wouldn't be having these conversations now trying to convince people to change a mindset that we were never, indoctrinated with. We were indoctrinated with to sit quiet, be quiet, sit to your desk. Like certain things when it comes to the educational system that we have today, it does not foster that championship mentality that is required to win big in our
Yeah.
businesses and to win big in life. It just really doesn't.
I think there's so many good on different levels. So, like, I think the last probably 4 years of teaching, what I did was an assignment, and I've talked about this before. Is I asked students to think about 5 things that they're interested in that they can make a career out of. Make a list of 20 jobs and or businesses in each field. On the side of that, um, write up the life you want to live. Do you want to live in New York? You want to live in Atlanta? Do you want to live in LA? What do you want to live? Like, what do you want to live in? A house, a condo? Like all that stuff is listed down. What are your monthly expenses? Do you want to go out 3 times a month? Do you want to go out 10 times a month? Do you want to really focus on Uber Eats? Do you want a private chef? Like, and I would have them write these expenses down. Do you want cable? Do you want Netflix? Do you want to share a password? Because all this stuff matters that we don't really talk about. And then I would go back to like add that life up and then do it times 12 because that's your yearly budget, right? So if it's like $80,000 a year, you need to make more than that just to get it. So if you divide it by 12, let's say if it's like expenses are $10,000 a month, that means every week I need to make $2,500, right? So on the other side of that, I would go to the list and tell them to find the median range salary of each job. Like give me the low one and give me the high, but also look at the median. So how many jobs do you need to achieve the life you want to get, right? Because when you look at two side by side, like for me, like I was told, like, oh, you got to focus on one thing. Now, if you ain't got the money that I'm looking for, I can't listen to you to say that. And there's nothing wrong with it. I do believe you got to focus on one thing, but I think the real saying is focus at one thing at a time, right? So that's the thing. It's not about focus on one thing. Focus on one thing at a time. So what I did today to start my day from like 9 to 10, I prayed, I did, and I got stuff organized. From 10 to 11, I had another task. And then from 11 to 12, I knew I was going to podcast. I was prepping for the podcast, getting our notes together. And then from 12 to 1, I know it's a podcast. I got something from 1 to 1:30, and I got something from 1:30 on to about 4. And then I have something for another. Like, I think, too, what happens is you can do something that you focus on, but you can focus on it at a time. Don't let anybody. I think a lot of us are multi gifted, but we've never been able to express that. For one thing, a lot of my students that I've told over the years are like they're special ed, right? And I think sometimes we think of the word special ed, you think of words that's not nice, right? But I think that special ed is like you just think differently from other people. So what I tell all my students, especially when they have IEPs, I said, find out what's in your IEP, right? I had this one student who he didn't know his shapes, right? Let's just be clear. He didn't know his shapes. I said, give me a square plate, he'll give me a circle. Like that was him. But I love this kid because when I would talk to him about other stuff, because he did sell some other stuff on the side that we got him out of, but he knew that like the back of his hand. I said, if you take the same thing and apply it to here, you'll be great. But no one ever told him that. So I said, the reason why it's important to know your IEP, when you go into different work settings or entrepreneurs or teamwork ethics, you can say, hey, guys, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by touching and doing, right? Or I can say, hey, that's cool. I'm an auditory learner. I learn by hearing. Or, hey, I'm a visual. I learn by seeing. Sometimes we're double. Sometimes we're all three. But we always have a stronger point. But no one ever told us that, hey, because even too, you know what they did as a kid? I don't know if you had this, Natalie, but they would put headphones on you and they would tell you to tap which sound it was coming from because it would test your hearing, right? But I think what happens is we don't do that as adults. We don't test our hearing. We don't test our vision. We don't test what we're speaking. So when we go into different situations, we know how to process what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're doing. And when you learn how to do all three, the process what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and what you're doing, you get to be a more well-rounded person. So when you get new information, you can compartmentalize it where it needs to go. And I think too, like over these, I've been really good at being able to really kind of like bridge point that too. Like if I go to an event, right, that let's say Natalie's doing an event and she's talking about vision, she's talking about clarity, right? Because she's giving me new information, something I may know already, I have to know how to decipher information as soon as I get it. So as soon as I get the information, I'm deciphering where I need to put it at. But because we don't have clarity in our life or we don't have clarity about purpose, sometimes we get so boggled down with information that we go like this, damn, I don't know where to start at. Because you never taken time to really compartmentalize information. Because once you start to hear a word from God, or because God speaks to people, and once you start to see certain things, if I get new information that it may not be for right now, but I said, you know what, let me compartmentalize for it because this is for this thing, but right now it's not time for me to do it. But when you don't have clarity, you're like, oh, let me jump on this. This is great information. I go to the event the next day. Oh, let me jump on this information. That you start to see that, wait, I'm all over the place because I never had took time to focus on one thing at a time. So if I know that my time has to be like, and it's just really a lot because like I do a lot in my daily basis, like from the culinary part, from the coaching part, from different businesses. But you know what though? Once I learn how to create a schedule of what is important for this day, what time is important for, like for me, I know that it's not good for me to run errands from 2 to 7 because guess what? School traffic starts and then regular traffic starts. So I'm outside spending more time doing stuff that's going to take more time. That if I could have just got my errands done early in the morning, now I could be home by 2:30 to focus on from 2 to 7 things that make sense. Like I can focus on stuff in my house. I can focus on this. But because we're all over the place and we've never taken time to focus on one thing at a time, like and people have told me that, Josh, you got to really process things differently. You got to you're doing too much for you. But guess what? I've already built a schedule that I know that at this time I got to do this. At this time I have to do that. So once you start to focus on one thing at the right time, it's better. Focus on one thing at the right time. You're able to get more clarity and focus and to actually get stuff done. Like you can look at the end of the day at 9-10 o'clock, like, wow, I got a lot of stuff done. Not man, like, man, I ain't get nothing done today because you did not focus on one thing at the right time.
Boom, that was the game changer that everybody needed that they didn't know they needed, because I also heard that same foolishness. And I'm like, but I'm in so many different positions. How can I
Mm-hmm.
only focus on business? How can I only focus on, like, and I've tried that and it just doesn't work. But knowing and prioritizing, right, what goes in the particular order has allowed me, and I love that you reframed it even to focus on one thing at the right time, because that now allows me to see that my priorities matter. I have to make sure that I'm putting those priorities right, making sure that they're right, and my schedule reflects what my priorities are. And I just wanted to recap, because I was like, I don't know if y'all hearing this, but
Yeah.
a champion has clear vision. A champion is disciplined. A champion is multi-gifted. So stop letting people say that you could only do that one thing. A champion is focused on the one thing at the right time. A champion understands very well their strengths and their weaknesses. A champion is self-aware. I love the things. I was trying to gather all the information and all the gems that you were dropping, and try to put it, to that neat little bubble. But these are all the characteristics of a champion. And when you start understanding the characteristics of a champion, then you're able to step into that thing. You're able to say, I am a champion, and then look at the outcome that you're having, the results that you're having. Are you disciplined? Do you have clear vision? Are you multi-gifted? Are you focused on one thing at the right time? And if the answer is no, you get to fix it. The no does not mean you are not a champion. The no means you just have not adopted the characteristics of a champion that is in alignment with your identity. And now you get to fix it. This is why the next thing, failure, being able to overcome failure, is part of the champions list as well. I just told Chef J about this. Netflix, right? The CEO of Netflix has this podcast out. I don't know how I end up listening to this podcast. I don't even know what the name of the podcast is, but I'm listening to the CEO, the former CEO of Netflix, right? And he's having this conversation, and he's talking about the reason why Netflix was able to catapult into this $1 million business very quickly within a matter of 18 months, so to speak. Right, I think he said 12 to 18 months, was because they got very quick at making mistakes. First, it took a couple of months to get fail from certain ideas, and then he was like, "It's taking too long. We need to break this down into weeks." Then it became weeks where they were failing at things. They were like, "It's taking too long." Notice, he was not taking too long to be successful. He was taking too long to fail at all the things that were not working. And he said, we even got it down to we were testing and failing on a daily basis. We got it down to that. He said we were making mistakes, but then we recognized even making the mistakes, it didn't even have anything to do with the fact that we were failing, and we just wanted to fail our way quickly so that we can get to a place of success. And then they got to this place of success, right? And in the .com thing, they lost everything. They lost everything. They were negative $50 million in the hole. And I know y'all know the story about how Netflix approached Blockbuster, right? And he talked a little bit about that. He said when they approached Blockbuster, because it was two founders, sorry, that they approached Blockbuster, they were negative $50 million in debt. And then they went to Blockbuster, who was evaluated at the time as a $6 billion company. And Blockbuster was like, no, we don't want to partner with you. And this is what the thing, they just wanted Netflix wanted Blockbuster to pay them $50 million to merge, right? They were like, we just need to get back in the zero. We don't even want no profit. We just want to get back even because we are negative 50 million in the hole. And they asked for 50 million. And Blockbuster said, absolutely not. This is outrageous. This company you want us to pay, not happening, right? Then, of course, we all know that Netflix went on to become a great company. They failed, they continued to fail, and they failed, and they failed their way to success. And there was one major tweak, minor yet major tweak, where they eliminated late fees, and that catapulted them into the next realm, so to speak, right? And so that opened the doors up for them to be the streaming company that they are right now. And Netflix, who did not take advantage of the time, because that was the time where people were shifting from just physical stores to online. He said people keep saying that it's Netflix put Blockbuster out of business, but he said it wasn't Netflix. He said Blockbuster put Blockbuster out of business because they initially wanted to move and merge when they saw the times and the seasons changing, but they decided to stop and go back to their old way of doing things, go back to their old model, and the old model could not sustain them in the new season. And because Netflix had a regimen, a routine of failing quickly, they were able to utilize this time period to succeed and look at, okay, no late fees. Blockbuster has enormous late fees. Let's get rid of it. Let's move. And they moved very quickly and found success. Now, guess how much Netflix is evaluated as today? We know what Blockbuster is, zero, because they bankrupt. But Netflix today, from negative 50 million and consistently failing, is now evaluated about 237, or is it 87? It's either a 3 or an 8, but over $200 billion. $200 billion. People put out new releases on Netflix. Celebrities pull out movies on Netflix, right? Netflix have their own movies, their own, things that they create, their own series, their own shows. And this is from a company that was negative $50 million in the hole. And they came up to be over $200 billion because they understand the power of failing and failing fast. So we got to add that to the list of being a champion.
That's good. And that goes to our next part is overcoming fear of failure. I think that was so dope what you said about practicing failure and failing quickly. And I think too, people look at failure as the wrong way. um, one of my friends wanted to put something on and they didn't have the right research to do it. I said, you ain't even start doing what you wanted to do, and you feel like you failed already because you didn't have this one thing. When I said start on a smaller scale, because when you start on a smaller scale, you can then branch out. But I said, but in this smaller scale, start going to events that are geared towards what you do, so you can start switching over business cards. People can see what you have, and I think what happens is too is we're not really comfortable with branching out. Like for me, I'm like, yo, Josh, you have been doing like a lot of networking events in the last like 2 years. So okay, so start going to them because I want to make sure that I'm staying on top of the game. That sometimes you don't even know how marketable you are if you never go. Like I still go on job interviews today just because I wanted to see like how marketable I am for different jobs, or to even get insights on what they're doing at their business or their company that makes them great. Like even too, there was this video I was watching of the guy. This guy was looking for a food critic to come in. The guy he thought it was a food critic was not. He was actually competing restaurant, and he gave the guy all of this free food, so he knew exactly what was on the menu because he gave up all of his gems to the competitor. And I think sometimes too is that when you're not really focused on just growth and things like that, you take time away from actually really paying attention to your surroundings. Right? The Bible says in 2 Timothy verse 1-7, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-control or sound mind. Right? When I think about that, power is what a champion has power. Love, because you love what you do, and self-control to know that, hey, you know what? Even though I can do this, I'm not going to do this because it goes away from what it is. Fear can paralyze you immensely, but you have to use fear as fuel for growth. For example, if you look at Thomas Edison, well, I don't want to say that one because it's another thing about that too with Black people where we really did some of that stuff he did. But when you look at the really that wasn't a good example, ChatGPT. But when you look at the ingenuity of, let's say, George Washington Carver, right? He made over. I got to bring it black. So he found over 300 uses for the peanut, right? We can't even sometimes find more than two. I think too, when you start really allowing God to really be the umpire of your soul, of your soul, and the creator, and also the ingenuity behind it, and let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus. If my mind is in Christ, or Christ's mind is in me, I'm gonna automatically think differently. And people take that as a way of like holiness and stuff like that, but it's way bigger than that. When Christ's mind is in my mind, I have a limitless amount of mind. They say we use about, what is it, like 2% or 11% of our brain function. Where the other 80% at? So I'm like, God, how can I expand my brain that I can use a bigger percent of it? Because guess what? That means that we're limitless, right? If Christ's mind is in me, I like to really focus on, okay, so if I knew that, that he fed 5,000 with one low fish, what can I do? Because if that supernatural power lives on me, what can I do to expand what God has for me? And I think sometimes too, when you have the clarity and the confidence that it builds, you start to live differently, because you start to realize that, hey, you know what, why can't I do this? Because the more you start to overcome fear, you start to see that faith is in that same process, right? The more I allow fear to overcome fear and failure, soon as I fail, faith tells me, let me get back up, because I know that now faith is the things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So once I realize that failure can happen, I realize that faith can happen. So I start to allow my fear or failure to trigger my faith. But oftentimes we let it lead to depression, we let it lead to jealousy, and these range of emotion where it's like, nah, I'm gonna let my failure lead me to success. Because if I failed, that means I know what didn't work. Like I know that this path did not work, or it didn't work right now. So let me try this way. And I love those books that I used to read, where it always gave multiple endings. Like if you chose A or B, you would go to this page. If you chose A, you would go to this page. Like, why do we think that this story only has to have one type of ending? Right. So I realized that is like success is my portion. So no matter how I do, no matter how I go through it, I realize that the goal is to go through it so I can see what the end is going to be. But so oftentimes we go through one part and experience failure, and it's like, man, what I'm going to do now? Like I failed so many times. Like even so, I'll take example the event space. I've been looking at a space for like 10 years, but it just did not work out to where this one right now worked out within 3 weeks. We was inside the doors because I allowed the opportunities of growth from the past allowed me to lead to success in this area, because I know that to get these steps together, the first thing I gotta do is I have to develop a habit of daily prayer and meditation to strengthen my faith. You can't expect to win if you're never meditating or whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are pure. Like you have to make a daily habit of meditating and speaking the word of God over your life. Like today, I have like on my walls, I have nothing but scriptures and faith confessions, right? And I'm like, I don't feel like doing this today. And I really didn't. But guess what? Once I read, and I have like the sheets like this big on my wall of just words. And at first I'm like, let me read this and get it over with. Then I read the first one, I started to get energy and faith. I read the second one, I read because I have about 6 of them. By the time I got to the 6th one, I started to operate, enjoy, and build up my faith. Because what happens is if you live in fear, that means you never get a chance to build your faith. When you it's always going to be faith over fear for me, because I know that things are going to take time, but it's up to me to build up my faith by every day, by starting by speaking. Develop habits of daily prayer or meditation to my faith. Second thing is I want to reflect on past victories where my faith led to my success. So if I'm like right now, I'm experiencing something where I need to get like 20K by the end of the month. Ain't worried about it. It's only 11, so it can happen tomorrow, right? So the first thing I reflect on the past time where I had a deficit, but I said, God, you brought me out that time. You brought me out that time too. Like, oh wait, I had victory that time too. So once you start to meditate on it happening before, if it happened once, it can happen again. If it happened 3 times, it can happen 4. But you have to meditate on the success part about when you did overcome to get it going. And the last thing is surround yourself with a supportive faith-based community, right? What I say when I talk to Natalie so much, why this podcast is so important to me, is I really get to talk to my friend almost every week, and we talk about faith. We get to build each other up. That after this call, I'm inspired, Natalie's inspired, and that we get to go in our other prospective businesses and bring what we taught, because we know that I know that she's anointed by God and I know I'm anointed. So we know that we're going to be built up by different things, but it takes yourself surrounding yourself around the right people. So first, develop that habit of daily prayer and meditation to strengthen your faith. Secondly, reflect on past victories, because if he did it before, he could do it again, where faith led to success. And number three, surround yourself with a supportive faith-based community. If you're not being motivated in the negative space that you're in, get out. Stop making it a choice to be around negative people, right? Once I see that negative part, you got a timer to fix that, or I'm gonna have to move on, because I know that I gotta fix it. Or sometimes if I'm being like kind of negative, or like I feel I change my perspective, because I'm like, man, does the other person want to really hear this? you know, and then you want to surround yourself by those people, because you want to be able to build your faith. Every time I talk to Natalie, I know it's going to end in an inspiration. In your current circle, does it end that way? And if it doesn't, that's the first thing you're going to give her. Clean house to get clarity. What you got to add, Natalie?
Nothing. No, only one thing. Faith. I seen it, but you just brought clarity to it. Faith grows in community, in the
Mm,
right community, and that's so important. You want your faith to grow, get in the right community. You want your faith to grow to the point where you're like, I can have these 20K months, like Coach J, Coach Chef J. Lord,
it's going to
get in
70K
community.
months. That's my faith for every day
Yes,
that I'm
get
having $10,000 a month, $10,000
but we
a
have
week.
to get in community with those people that are saying those things. We can't expect more and be in community with people who are accepting less. If we want our faith to grow, we have to get in communities where people are exercising and growing their faith. Or else, if we don't intentionally grow our faith, we will revert back to our nature, and that is to operate from a place of fear. We like to fight or flight. So we have to
That's good.
consistently surround ourselves with faith talkers, with faith walkers, with faith manifestors, right? We got to surround ourselves with that community, and that's so important. And that's why you need to connect with Chef J. All the things that he's doing, and he's going to share with you in just a second. I need to have this down pat. And
Yeah.
myself in my Clarity to Execute Academy with my entrepreneurs, my startups, those who are making $50,000 or less and who want to 10x their income. Come into the space. Stop sitting there and struggling by yourself, because what you're doing in the absence of a faith-based community is just growing your fear. Tell them what you
Yep.
got, Chef.
That's good. First thing is, two, book is this book gonna be out within the next couple weeks. So I'm about to really knock this out. And then two, Boss Up Boot Camp. We finally are finalizing the date for March for our conference that we normally have, and just getting stuff together. Like, yo, and if you're looking to book an event space for something dope, we got something really good in Jersey. But listen, closed mouths don't get fed. If you need help, ask for help. Don't be sitting there knowing you're struggling and knowing that you need some help. All right. So get some help. We're here to help you guys. Reach out to us and have a wonderful week on purpose.